Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to round 10 of the Half Summit Alpha Championship in 2023. We are here on the streets of Monaco. What a fantastic evening's racing this should be. One of my favourites of any kind of single-seater racing calendar, really. It's not, you know, often well known for its overtaking opportunities, but I just think from historical significance point of view, I think we're certainly going to have Monaco on the calendar, and it's certainly proving a challenge for some drivers here. Paul Brady currently leading this qualifying session. That is actually incorrect. I'll tell you that it is Barry Clayton leading this qualifying session at this point in time. Paul Brady is certainly using as much of this track as possible here. We see him just banging against some of the walls, as we are seeing a few drivers do so far in this session. There is Paul Brady diving into the pits there. But just look at this fantastic new Monaco mod here, brought to you by Paya. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But just look at the graphical fidelity here, ladies and gentlemen. This is a fantastic looking circuit. In fact, pushing my computer just a little bit too hard, so we'll make some tweaks before race 1. But it does look absolutely spectacular. It certainly does the street of Monaco justice. Willing List currently running very nicely indeed. We're on board with him as he's gone purple through the first sector, 20.4 seconds through that first sector. Personal best through this second one as well, so he's putting in a good charge for pole position here. An all-important pole, of course, here at Monaco. And he does, in fact, take provisional pole position here with a blistering 1 minute 18.4. And that is all those rear tyres could manage. Perhaps just like we were seeing in the Formula 1 running just a week ago, or just a few days ago, in fact. The rear tyres were really proving to be the limit around this circuit so far, and that seems to be the case for Willing List. He has to abandon his run and dive back into the British Formula to go in this qualifying session, and it's looking good for Willing List at this point in time. We'll catch you in just a few minutes' time when we've got a couple of tweaks completed on the setup. And welcome back to the action, ladies and gentlemen. I should just mention that we were about to have another fantastic lap from Willing List, but I think he had to abandon it late on there. It was another couple of purple sectors trying to improve on his 1 minute 18.4. Unfortunately for him, wasn't able to do that time round. So we go again with Willing List. And I should also mention that despite his fantastic efforts there, it is Barry Clayton who's currently on top in the timesheets with a 1 minute 17.6. So 0.8 of a second clear of Willing List. So he's absolutely flying along at the moment, is Barry Clayton. And currently not under much threat at all. But go back on board with Willing List. Willing List is his closest rival at this point in time, but I've got to say it's looking very good indeed for Barry Clayton here on the streets of Monaco. Just 90 seconds to go now on the timer, so the drivers have to start their fast laps within that 90 seconds. They're of course free to continue their laps after that timer has hit 0, but before that they've got to try and get that lap in. Just look at those reflections through the tunnel thanks to this new mod here. Look absolutely glorious. I'd go as far as saying this is possibly our best looking track so far. I know we're going to start to see more and more nice looking tracks rolling in, for which I am very thankful, and it should be great for you guys watching at home, as well as we have Paul Millman posting a lap there. I can say it was 1 minute 19.3 is his best so far, as Willingless is now preparing to go out on track, and Barry Clayton's in fact just about to finish a lap there, but seems to have come across an issue. Will that compromise any of the cars on track now? He was able to dive into the pits just in the nick of time. Now 30 seconds to go on the timer, so we're also going to be watching out for cars that are yet to cross the line and start another lap here. It's going to be Barry Clayton's not going to make it. Willingless won't make it for another attempt. This is his last attempt, so hopefully for his sake no major traffic to worry about here. He does have a car up in front. That is Steve Knight compromising his lap there, and that will be the end of the running for Willingless in this qualifying session. Who else is left to go? We have Guy Strawbrick out on track at this point in time. He's not going to make the start-finish line either. So these are now the final runners on track here. What a shame for Willingless. That was another purple sector at 20.3 this time round. So it would have been an improvement on this lap, on that lap as things stood. But that is just one of the challenges of the streets of Monaco. You need that qualifying, of course, because overtaking opportunities are thin and far. But as we see Guy Strawbrick making contact with the wall, and at the very end compromising his lap there. That was going to be a personal best for Guy Strawbrick, but unfortunately for him, it's all over as the timer hits 0. Paul Millman improves, goes 1 minute 20.2. Not enough, in fact, doesn't improve in the end. Do we have an improvement from Jack Hodson? No, we don't have an improvement from Jack Hodson. In fact, no, we do. It's a 1 minute 20.9, sees him in P6. But the end of the qualifying session here in Monaco, a bit of a disaster for some drivers, as it turns out. Did he make it across the line, did Jack Hodson? I don't believe he did. That predicted time's also looking quite brave. I'm not quite sure whether this lap will continue on as expected, because, yes, that seems to be slightly odd. We're actually seeing here at the end of this qualifying session one of the benefits of the RSS Supreme in comparison to, say, a modern Formula 1 car, in the fact that it can actually make it round the Grand Hotel hairpin, which, you know, isn't always the case, but good to see that these cars can do that. No, I believe this is the end of the running for Jack Hodson. It is, in fact, as you can see them diving across the Nouvelle Chicane there. But that will bring an end to this qualifying session here. Petering out at the end there. Drivers running out of luck, unfortunately. But we'll catch you in just a few minutes' time for the start of race 1. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Just over 30 seconds now until lights out here on the streets of Monaco. Of course, that start, all important here on a track where overtaking opportunities are few and far between. It's Barry Clayton and Will Inglis lining up on the front row. Expect a battle between those two at some point. Andrew Brammer, Paul Millman also poised in a fantastic position after that qualifying for a good finish here. Paul Brady, Jack Hodson. Apologies, no, that's Paul Brady and Andrew Brammer the other way around there. But Jack Hodson also in the mix. Guy Swarbrick, Steve Knight rounding out the running here at Monaco. So only 8 cars, but I think that'll be plenty here at this very tight and twisty street circuit as we now have 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away as Barry Clayton gets a fantastic run off the start-finish line there. Will Inglis losing out a little bit to Paul Brady. There's Paul Brady now up into 2nd position. Barry Clayton absolutely walking away as we head up through Beau Rivage here. Will Inglis dropping back now from Paul Brady, although is he able to make up a little bit of ground as we head down towards the casino? Right-hander? No, in fact he's very much under pressure from Paul Milne, potentially in a second. It's Will Inglis actually now getting up the inside of Paul Brady. Andrew Brammer and Jack Hodson battling it out. Meanwhile, as we headed up towards the casino corner as well, heading through the hairpin, and it's all 8 cars on the same part of the screen, which is what we like to see. Only 5 seconds separating the entire grid at this point in time as we head now into the tunnel part of the lap here. 2.5 seconds now separating Barry Clayton and Paul Brady. Fantastic start to the race for Paul here, as we have Jack Hodson getting the overtake done on Andrew Brammer. We didn't quite catch all of that, but we do wonder whether heading into the Nouvelle Chicane, was it a bit of a brave move under braking? Andrew Brammer doesn't really care too much in the end because he gets a fantastic run out of the Nouvelle Chicane, now heading through the swimming pool complex and is very much clear of Jack Hodson at this point in time. Meanwhile, Paul Brady clear of Will Inglis. Is he? We're about to see as we head down that start-finish straight once again, as they are pretty much neck and neck heading down that start-finish straight. Paul Brady clearly running a little bit more downforce in comparison to Will Inglis, although turn 1 goes all wrong for him as he heads through Saint-Devote. He gets the back end out and has to settle for P3 once again. In fact, no, he doesn't. He's able to get back ahead of Will Inglis. That isn't a bit of an eclectic start to the race, because there is Barry Clayton. It's Barry Clayton's actually had an issue here we've missed in all of this, and it's now Will Inglis in the lead of this race. Barry Clayton, apologies, Paul Brady in 2nd position here. Very much a chaotic start to this Monaco race weekend here. As we have Paul Milner now in 3rd position, 2 seconds off Will Inglis, only a few tenths off Paul Brady. He's had a fantastic start to this race. He's been able to stay ahead of Andrew Brammer, has really benefited well from a fantastic qualifying session. Was attacking the second row throughout qualifying. He does now find himself in a very good position for potentially a P2 or a P1 at certain points in this race if things go his way. He's now poised to capitalise on the mistakes of other people up in front, as we have plenty of time left in this race for such mistakes to be made. He's in a very good position indeed, is Paul Millman, as he just about avoids contact with the wall, heading through Rascasse there. Very close indeed. Just goes to show how difficult this circuit is. It's not the most high speed circuit at all, but in these very high downforce cars, it can carry so much grip, so much speed through the corners, which at some point would have been anything more than a 60 mile an hour, 70 mile an hour corner. These cars are now taking them at about 100 miles an hour, if not more. It's a very difficult circuit. Indeed, it's one small error, one lapse in concentration, and you're facing the wrong direction implanted in the barriers. So to keep a car going through the 25-minute duration of this race is very impressive indeed. As Will Inglis now, after a bit of a slow start for him, a start that you'd like to forget, I think, is now poised for a race victory. Very well indeed, of course, here at this Monaco Grand Prix. Apologies, it's Monaco race. A bit of a difficult track to overtake on. He's currently 4 seconds ahead of the rest of the field, as Barry Clayton has further issues, now down into P7. What a turnaround in fortunes for him, at one point leading this race with a fantastic qualifying. That all came undone rather quickly, now down in P7. Jack Hodson, meanwhile, is absolutely flying along. Everyone, of course, on the same compound tyre in the RSS Supreme. Not that a tyre wear is too much of a worry here at Monaco. But he's absolutely flying along in the midfield at this point in time. 5th on the road, and has just posted a purple sector 1, low 22nd read of him, which is very good indeed. He's only outdone, really, by race leader Will Inglis. So good pace in the midfield here in this race. So anything can happen yet. In terms of setup, we do have a bit of variance here. 270 kilometres now for the likes of Will Inglis, Paul Millman as well. Then we've got the likes of Paul Brady and Jack Hodson carrying a little bit more downforce, as we have further issues for Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton, Gaius Robert making contact, having a bit of a collision here. And Barry Clayton briefly coming to a stop. His race very much in turmoil now. He's poised well for the reverse good race coming up later on, but I'm sure that is not what's on his mind at this point in time. Back on board then with race leader Will Inglis as he's heading through the Nouvelle Chicane, and it is a blistering run for him so far. 1 minute 18.6 on that last lap in comparison to the next quickest car, which is his nearest rival, Paul Brady. A 1 minute 20, so he's absolutely flying along, is Will Inglis. It's a very different circuit, this one, to the Miami Corse, of course, which we visited just a fortnight ago. In fact, you could maybe argue that Miami's Sector 3 is slightly reminiscent of some parts of Monaco, but aside from that, two completely different kettle of fish in terms of setup, in terms of how you approach the weekend. So it's good to see these drivers enjoying a very different type of circuit. They have to completely readjust to this one, and it is, as I say, it's looking fantastic, this new mod pack here with the more modern F1 sponsorships, more modern kind of graphics as well. As we already have Will Inglis potentially coming up on some lapped traffic in just a moment's time here, as we have Steve Knight, I believe, just heading through the Grand Hotel hairpin before we run down through Portier and the tunnel in just a moment's time here. But Will Inglis could potentially find himself compromised in just a few moments' time here, because, as we know, very few overtaking opportunities here at Monaco. That also is withstanding when you've got lap traffic to negotiate with. We already saw Will Inglis and Steve Knight having a bit of a coming together in qualifying. Will Inglis potentially on pole were it not for lap traffic. Not that matters too much for him at this point in time. I'm sure he's already forgotten about that one. But yes, lap traffic certainly could be someone's undoing here in this race. An 8-second gap, while comparatively cavernous when you're in the middle of race conditions, can quickly become undone when you are finding yourself in a bit of difficulty. So let's see what Will Inglis can do. Let's see how he negotiates this lap traffic coming up in just a few moments' time. He should be coming up in just a few corners. In fact, 118 on that last lap for Will Inglis and 126 for Steve Knight. So about 8 seconds a lap. That gap should be closing corner by corner now for Will Inglis, and we could have hopefully what is a very easy time for Will Inglis' sake, and for the likes of Paul Brady and Paul Millman, potentially a little bit of less of an easy time as he's trying now to find his way past Steve Knight. And here is not an ideal position to be dealing with lap traffic. It is the hairpin. Overtakes can be done at the hairpin, but it usually involves a bit of front-end contact. The tunnel is a next potential overtaking opportunity if you get a good run out of Portier. Before that, the braking zone into the Nouvelle Chicane being another fantastic overtaking opportunity in comparison to what else is on offer on track. And there is Will Inglis now past Steve Knight, heading through that part of the circuit. In fact, it's already 2 laps down for Steve Knight here, so Will Inglis very much motoring along now. I believe he just made contact with the wall. He has, as we headed through in towards the swimming pool section of the circuit. He did indeed make contact heading through turn 12 there, so Will Inglis has to watch out for that one. Doesn't want to take too much of his front wing out as he heads through the lap, because he'll soon find himself a little bit struggling for grip with not much downforce on the car. Still plenty of time to go in this race, so he'll be wanting to avoid damage as much as possible. Andrew Brammer, meanwhile, currently running in P4, as I believe. Will Inglis just riding up on the curve a little bit. Have to watch out for that one. Andrew Brammer in a very good position here, as ever. Andrew Brammer always just finding himself in a perfect position. I'm sure that position could be a little bit more perfect for him if Jack Hodson would leave him alone for just a few minutes' time. But Jack Hodson is currently very much all over the gearbox of Andrew Brammer here. Potentially compromised a little bit with that contact with the wall, heading through the final corner for turn 19. Not much of a corner, but clearly enough of one to warrant a bit of a wall and a bit of a curve there, as Jack Hodson found out, and as a result has had to drop back ever so slightly. But Andrew Brammer currently the most under pressure of anyone else on circuit here. Let's see now how he heads through the middle part of the lap when being challenged by Jack Hodson. In terms of their pace at the moment, it's 122.2 on that previous lap for Jack Hodson, potentially going into that issue that we saw with the wall there, 121.9 for Andrew Brammer. In terms of their best lap time, it's 121.4 for both drivers. This is a very even fight going on between these two cars. Let's see now as we head through the tunnel. The swimming pool chicane is going to be the next overtaking opportunity for Jack Hodson if he is able to get close enough. Let's see, in terms of the aerodynamics, they're both running a relatively similar package. Andrew Brammer slightly quicker through the straights there, and there is Jack Hodson having issues on the braking heading into the swimming pool. Apologies, not the swimming pool, heading into the Nova chicane. And late on the brake, potentially outbraking himself, has to dive over the curbs and give up the position there and drop back. So Andrew Brammer, P4 for now. But yes, Andrew Brammer with a little bit more, with a little bit of a faster setup. Jack Hodson has a little bit more aero to play with. That could help him later on in the lap. We did see, and I'm thinking back to the Tartus FAO 4 days, which is, it seems like an absolute eternity ago now with that multi-air engine. That 1.4 turbo engine. We saw that in the lower grip cars with lower grip setup, the tyres did start to give out later on in the lap here at Monaco. And I can't, unfortunately, for the life of me, remember how it played out in the RSS Supreme last year. We, of course, running on a different lap, so it's a different track mod. So it's going to be all new grip conditions for the drivers. So we could see those drivers with a lower aero setup potentially struggling for grip later on. Of course, if you've got lower aero, you're going to have a little bit more scrubbing as the car kind of scrambling for grip a little bit more, as you're going to be suffering a little bit more redundancy. It's going to be less ideal conditions in terms of temperature, grip, everything for the car. So we could see those drivers running a lower aero setup potentially struggling for tyre wear later on in this race. As Jack Hodson, we see outbraking himself once again, too late on the brakes, heading into the Nouvelle chicane, gets side by side with Andrew Brammer as a result. Was never going to get the overtake done fairly though, so very kindly backed out of it and remains in P5 for the time being, but is going to be very much putting the pressure on Andrew Brammer once again as we head on to the next lap here at Monaco now, onto that start-finish straight. Not much of a straight at all, of course, and arguably not even the longest straight. I'll probably go to the run from Saint-Devote to Massenet, just equally as long here, but in fact both probably not the longest straight. Probably the most wide open opportunity you'll have here at Monaco is going to be the run from Poitiers down to the Nouvelle chicane, heading through that tunnels where you're going to reach the highest speeds here on track with that downhill run into the Nouvelle chicane. That's where you're going to get the car at its quickest without DRS, of course, in these RSS Supreme cars, but we do have the use of the push-to-pass system for drivers thinking about where to deploy that in order to either keep cars behind at bay or try and set up an overtaking move here at an otherwise very difficult to overtake at circuit. Running through that tunnel now, then Jack Hodson is going to benefit from a slipstream. Will he think about using that push-to-pass system as we run down to the Nouvelle chicane? Late on the brakes, potentially no. Both drivers, in fact, locking up. Both drivers this time around making the corner, which is good to see. Meanwhile, Willing List busy setting blistering lap times. Has just gone purple in all three sectors on that last lap, and it was a 1 minute 17.7 for Willing List on that previous lap. Back on board then with Andrew Brammer as we head now down to Le Rascasse once again, and it's very close indeed between these two drivers now. So let's watch them on a bit of a louder lap as they head through the streets of Monaco. Heading back into the tunnel then, it's still Andrew Brammer in P4, Jack Hodson in P5. The gap expanding ever so slightly this time round, but still plenty of overtaking opportunities here on the streets of Monaco. Let's have a look now at how the championship is looking after the previous round in Miami. Of course, things will change between race 1 and race 2 here, but just a bit of a refresher after what was, as it turned out to be, quite an important round for round 9 at Miami. We're of course now into the very late stages of this championship. It is Willing List who extends his lead in P1 in the pro running, and that gap, that championship position is looking rather insurmountable. At one point, of course, it was Willing List versus Paul Brady. Alex Smith eventually got ahead of Paul Brady, but still not close enough to try and defeat Will Inglis with the rounds remaining. It's about 70 points between the two, so it's looking very difficult indeed for anyone to top Will Inglis at this point in time. So it's Will Inglis in P1, Alex Smith in P2, Paul Brady in P3. He will increase his points tally, of course, owing to Alex Smith not being here this evening. Then we have Jack Hodgson in P4, level with Paul Millman. So as it stands, Paul Millman will be expending his lead as we head into race 2. Then we have Barry Clayton, of course. He was poised to make a boatload of points, which is, of course, very, very apt for... Oh dear, do we have an issue for Will Inglis? We do have an issue for Will Inglis, leading this race for so long. 10 minutes to go on the timer, and he now finds himself in P2 to Paul Brady here. We're not quite sure what went on. It was something in Sector 2 as we head through the exit of Tabac here, where we believe it all went wrong for Will Inglis. Potentially just a little bit too much throttle. Either way, finds himself buried in the wall. And Paul Brady, as we mentioned, only a few seconds behind for the entire duration of this race so far. He is absolutely poised to take the lead away from Will Inglis and has been able to do so. It's now Paul Brady in the lead of this race, 6 seconds ahead of our incumbent leader for a long time, Will Inglis. Then we have Paul Millman not too far behind him in P3 at this point in time. So currently looking for a podium here at Monaco. And then we have a fairly large gap down to P for that battle between Andrew Brammer and Jack Hodgson that has been raging on for so long now, as we believe as well. Paul Brady having an incident heading into the Portier right-hander here. 6 seconds now between Will Inglis and Paul Brady. Let's see Will Inglis' pace. If he's able to pick up, if he wasn't able to take too much damage away from that incident, with 9 minutes to go in this race, we're going to have a very close battle for the lead here at Monaco. It was 1996 the last time that we saw an overtake on track at Monaco for the lead of a race, and that was in of course the Grand Prix in 1996. As Paul Millman had an issue and in fact retires from the session. That is very much unfortunate for Paul Millman. However, it makes it all more important for Andrew Brammer. Now he's fighting for a podium here at Monaco as Jack Hodgson struggles to make the Nouvelle Chicane once again. Currently in P4 owing to Paul Millman's issues here, but now this overtake just matters that little bit more. He has some lapped traffic to contend with, does Andrew Brammer. That is Steve Knight up in front in P6 on the road at this point in time. So let's see how he negotiates that. Of course, if it gets held up by Steve Knight for a little bit too long, Jack Hodgson is going to be in an absolutely perfect position here. However, both get away with relative ease. Now as we head down in towards Sandoval once again. Now there's going to be Andrew Brammer in the lead. For how long, we ask ourselves, in the lead of this battle, this battle for the podium, of course, as things stand. We go back on board with Will Inglis as well. That gap that was 6 seconds, make that 5 seconds now with 8 minutes to go in the race. About a second a minute is my very quick napkin math is telling me. Of course, it's one thing to catch up, another thing to overtake. Let's see how Will Inglis is able to negotiate that battle with Paul Brady. He'll want that race lead back, of course, after leading this race for so long before coming a cropper with a couple of issues at the exit of Tabac. But in terms of the championship then, it is Alan Matthews in P7, Andrew Brammer P8, so it's a fairly close mid-pack battle actually as we approach what is now our penultimate race round in 2 weeks' time. But this is round 10, of course, so the late stages of the championship for sure, but still 6 races to go, which we're very much looking forward to. 4.4 seconds now separating Will Inglis and Paul Brady, so Will Inglis really putting the hammer down. Now in terms of pace at the moment, a 119.1 that last lap for Will Inglis, a 120.1 for Paul Brady. Best lap, of course, Will Inglis very much takes that trophy from this race. It's a 117.7 in this race. Fantastic lap from him so far. In terms of Andrew Brammer and Jack Hodgson, they are very close indeed. Closer, much closer in fact, than Paul Brady and Will Inglis. We head now down towards the casino. And that is turn 4, of course. Only 6 tenths of a second separating these two drivers as we're going to head down towards that hairpin now, which the RSS Supreme, of course, not needing a different steering rack, unlike the Formula 1 car, makes it around with relative ease, although Jack Hodgson's seems to be quite difficult to get around. That left-hander this time round has dropped back a little bit as a result, still within 1 second, so still very much in the fight here, but someone who is certainly within the fight is Will Inglis. He is hunting down Paul Brady with a vengeance at this point in time. He is absolutely ready to fight for that race lead once again. Interesting to note, Paul Brady is one of the slower cars on track at this point in time. Not in terms of lap pace, just in terms of outright top speed. He's clearly opted for a slightly higher downforce setup. 249 kilometers an hour in comparison to Willinglist's car, which is 266 kilometers an hour, the quickest car on track through the speed traps. So it goes to show that ultimate high downforce potentially not the be-all and end-all here at Monaco. Of course, these cars are not quite the monsters in a straight line as a modern Formula 1 car is, not quite approaching those 1,000 horsepower figures, although they are certainly not far off. They are very powerful cars in their own right, but you maybe don't want to be gunning straight for high downforce. Maybe you do need that extra benefit of straight line speed here at Monaco in these RSS Supremes. It's certainly working well for Willinglist because he's now just over 1 second behind Paul Brady. Not to be outdone though, Jack Cotton just over 0.3 of a second behind Andrew Brammer. As we head into the tunnel, he's having a look up the inside of that very slight right hand kind of nature of this straight, if you will, before we run down into the Nouvelle Chicane, but well defended by Andrew Brammer to keep him behind, to make sure that that overtaking opportunity isn't presented in any way, shape or form. But Willinglist absolutely flying along on that last lap to 1:18.8. I was, if you have a look at the sector times, if you're following along on the live timing system, you can see that pretty much no one is setting personal best at this point in time. Steve Knight, the only car at the moment posting personal best times. So clearly the track's rubbering in. The track's getting a little bit grippier as we continue on, although we do already start with optimal conditions. The cars are losing weight in terms of their fuel load, but the tyres clearly giving up this late into the race. We're not seeing the blistering 1:17s that we were seeing from Willinglist. We're about a second off that, so the tyres are certainly a limiting factor as it turns out here at Monaco in a race distance. That's one thing to watch out for, but Paul Brady has to watch out for Willinglist. Willinglist just about making the braking zone into the Nouvelle Chicane. All four wheels, in fact, producing a puff of smoke as he locks up into the Nouvelle Chicane, where it all went wrong for him just a few laps ago, about 10 minutes ago, in fact. Heading through to back here, facing the wrong direction. It's gone very much his way this time around. He's now leading this race once again as Willinglist. He's demonstrated he's got the pace to do it, and he's got the bravery to get those overtaking moves done at what is otherwise a very difficult circuit to negotiate. So well done Willinglist, back in the lead of this race with 3 minutes on the clock. Let's see what Paul Brady can do now to try and mount a challenge to fight back for that race lead, which he also very much deserves. Impressive pace from Paul Brady as well so far this weekend. Let's go on board now with Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer still in P3, doing an impeccable job fighting for a podium here at Monaco, and also doing an impeccable job of doing this while very much under pressure from Jack Cotton. Jack Cotton has been echoing his every move, has matched his pace, just unfortunately hasn't had enough of a pace delta, a pace advantage to get the move done to overtake, so remains in P4 for the time being. Back on board then with Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer now only 0.7 of a second behind. Apologies, no, it's only Jack Cotton 0.7 of a second behind Andrew Brammer as we head out of the Nouvelle Chicane. Arguably the prime overtaking opportunity, especially from what we've seen so far this weekend. But still not able to find his way past, is following him oh so closely through the third sector. In terms of their second sectors and their strengths, like I say, Gijs Robic just posted a very strong sector through, goes purple through the middle sector here. It is Jack Cotton ever so slightly quicker through the first part of the lap, but I think Andrew Brammer, in fact Andrew Brammer a little bit slower all round on that previous lap, which we're seeing now as Jack Cotton is having a look as to where he can just about squeeze on RSS Supreme in to try and get past try and get past Andrew Brammer, rather. I can tell you it's nowhere just yet, although he's certainly having a look as we head down towards the Mirabeau right-hander here. In fact, there's two Mirabeaus, of course, and they're both right-handers. So we're just going to say we're heading through the hairpin now, and it is still Andrew Brammer in the lead at this point in time of this battle, but it's very close indeed between these two drivers as we're getting ready to head now into the tunnel once again, as Guy Sorwick in fact has a bit of difficulties. I believe he's just made contact with the wall at quite a high rate of knots, which is a shame because he's had a fantastic previous lap here. As we head now down towards Tabak once again, and it's still Andrew Rama in the lead of this battle. I've got to go, commend them both really for this battle so far. It's certainly not easy to follow so closely through the very tight streets of Monaco, but 3/10, 4/10 of a second, maybe at most 8 or 9 for the past 10 minutes or so. It's been a very close battle between these two drivers, and they haven't relented for 1 second. Fantastic racing between these two. We've not had an overtake fest, shall we say, but certainly some great battling going on between these two, as we're seeing Andrew Brammer potentially a little bit late on the push to pass system there, as we see it being used through that first corner of Sandoval there. That could be a little bit interesting. Could have the back end stepping out there like we saw Alonso on the start of the race on Sunday, but was able to navigate it very easily indeed. As we have now hit 0 seconds, this is of course the penultimate lap in this race, and it is Willingless heading through to back himself 4 seconds clear of Paul Brady, so was able to turn up the ante just a little bit as he headed later into the race. Currently lapping in the 119 to make that 120, so the pace dropping off for these drivers now. Paul Brady into the 22s, Andrew Brammer under pressure into the 20s, so the pace certainly is dropping off. These tyres starting to beg for mercy at this stage in the race, which could provide some interesting strategy options for race 2. We're not going to see anyone diving into the pits, of course, in the sprint race format. We're not going to see anyone changing compounds, of course. You can't in the RSS Supri, but we might see some drivers being careful about where they deploy their pace, how long they wait to try and set up those overtaking moves, because on the street to Monaco you're not going to be able to. I think there should be a bingo card for how many times I say street to Monaco this evening, but you're not going to get any overtakes done, so why bother putting the pressure on early on in the race? Why not wait until the final 10 minutes and then start pushing and then start trying to get past? That could be a very effective strategy here at Monaco. As we see then, Willingless with no major challenge heads through the Rascasse right-hander once again. 3 seconds clear of Paul Brady now. It should be a nice walk in the park for him to bring it home, and of course he brings it home to take the race victory. Of course, Paul Brady coming home in P2 there as Andrew Brammer. This is the battle that we've been focused on for quite some time now, heading through the swimming pool section once again, with Jack Hudson potentially looking at a move this late on. It's not a traditional overtaking spot here at Monaco. Can he make it work though? Let's see it as we head through that final corner now, back onto the throttle for both Andrew Brammer and Jack Hudson. It's going to be Andrew Brammer in the end though, who comes out on top to round out the podium here at Monaco for race 1. Jack Hudson, commiserations for what has been an otherwise fantastic race for you. Comes home P4. Guy Swarbrick will be coming home P5. Steve Knight P6. Barry Clayton classified P7. Paul Millman will be coming home P8 as well. Fantastic battling for some drivers there, as we have I can't imagine there's too much space for donuts here. We might be waiting until the reverse grid race coming up in just a few minutes time for that one. Just to cross the line yet, but that was certainly close between Andrew Brammer and Jack Hudson in the end now, as we get back into the pit, ready for race 2, which is coming up in just a few minutes time, so don't go anywhere. and we are ready to go once again. Just over 30 seconds to go until lights out. I remember when I was saying Alex Smith is going to lose points this weekend. Well, I'm pleased to report he's been able to join us for race 2. Of course, didn't qualify and didn't take part in race 1, so it's at the back of the running. But as we've seen in the past, reverse grid starts can be a little bit chaotic, so anything can happen yet. So it's Paul Millman and Barry Clayton on the front row, as he was in race 1. Steve Knight, Guy Swarbrick the second, Jack Hodson, Andrew Brammett on the third row, Paul Brady and Will Inglis on the fourth row, and Alex Smith occupying the fifth row by himself, although if you look at the time sheets, it's me as well. But I can tell you I'll not be running the 75 along with these RSS Supremes, as we have 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away. Paul Millman gets a decent start here as Steve Knight makes contact with the wall on that push-to-pass system, because Barry Clayton gets a better start as he tries to defend against Barry and is able to do so heading through Sandoval, rides over the curbs and keeps Barry Clayton behind him. This could be a very important race in Paul Millman's effort to gain some more points in the championship charge, as we have Barry Clayton now keeping Guy Swarbrick at bay for the time being. This should be a perfect opportunity to get ahead of his nearest rivals, the likes of Will Inglis, Paul Brady. This is a perfect opportunity to take away some good points from them. His potential only kind of barrier here being Paul Millman. Paul Millman could provide a challenge for him in this race. As Will Inglis and Andrew Brammett make contact, Paul Millman making contact with the wall there, and that is exactly what Barry Clayton needed. Heading through the tunnel complex, he has the inside of that very slight right-hander here and is up into first position before we head into the Nouvelle chicane now. Let's watch. He does have to go on the inside of the curbs. I don't think anyone will mind too much. It is, of course, the start of the race. The cars are at their heaviest and everyone is a little bit chaotic as they're trying to get into their positions. So it is going to be Barry Clayton who continues on in the lead of this race. Paul Millman in P2 then, and then we have Guy Swarbrick in P3, just about a second ahead of Andrew Brammett, and not too far behind at all is Will Inglis. Alex Smith battling it out. A great start to the race for Alex Smith, in fact already up into P6 on the road from P10. Andrew Brammett having a bit of a disaster on the exit of the final corner onto the start finish straight, and he's pretty much side by side with Alex Smith. Who's going to come out on top here? Who's going to be braver into Sandoval? It's going to be Paul Brady who's going to be very brave into Sandoval. In fact, gets ahead of Jack Hodson. For a second looked like he could be challenging Alex Smith, but thought better of it, has to dive back behind him and settle for P7 for the time being. This reverse grid race, out of all of them, could provide the most beneficial for those at the back in race 1, because it is so difficult to overtake here at Monaco. Have to watch out for that curb then, or rather that dip in the tarmac, heading down towards the Mirabeau right-hander here. All the drivers have to watch out for that one. Can really upset these slightly smaller, slightly lighter cars, of course, with a little bit less downforce on them. As we head through the tunnel once again, there's a bit of a train forming up behind the likes of Guy Swarbrick. In fact, no, it's not Guy Swarbrick, it's Will Inglis, Andrew Brammett and Alex Smith. In fact, that train that was forming up seems to have settled down ever so slightly. Contact between Paul Brady and Alex Smith. It looked like Paul Brady just slightly misjudged the braking zone there, made contact with the rear end of Alex Smith's car, and Alex Smith nearly sent flying into the wall. Luckily, he was able to just about avoid that and carry on, and in fact probably was about equal for his race arms if he'd made the corner, so no kind of major harm done there. The only person that compromised in the end was Paul Brady himself, so everyone can carry on without any kind of major consequences from that. Great start to the race though for Barry Clayton. He's lapping very nicely indeed, not quite as quickly as the likes of Will Inglis, but a 1 minute 20.5 with a full load of fuel on board. Certainly nothing to complain about really. Is 2 seconds clear of Paul Millman now. Meanwhile, Guy Swarbrick is about 2 seconds behind Paul Millman, with Will Inglis hunting him down from behind here. This is, I imagine, quite a threatening sight from the cockpit of the RSS Supreme here. Guy Swarbrick, of all the cars that you want to see behind you, it's probably not the front end of Will Inglis in your rear view mirror, as we now have Will Inglis is going to be waiting to try and find his poised, he's going to try and find a spot to be perfect and poised for an overtake as we head into the tunnel once again now. Guy Swarbrick is very much being challenged by Will Inglis. Will Inglis in the slipstream had a look up the outside here, misjudged it big time. They make contact. He rides up on the wall, does Will Inglis. Will Inglis, I believe, is able to carry on. No, he's not. He's dropping back behind Guy Swarbrick once again, and I can tell you has a massive amount of damage on the front wing of his car. Guy Swarbrick certainly did respond to the challenge of Will Inglis behind though. Did post a purple second 2 from that though. I can tell you Will Inglis certainly not posting a purple second 2 after that one. His car will be compromised for the rest of this race after that incident. What a shame. Is this going to be his undoing after a fantastic race 1? It's certainly going to be a little bit more difficult in race 2. One twice for Andrew Brammer, seems to be struggling a little bit more here in race 2. We've seen on the exit of that final corner a couple of occasions he's had an issue before, and that seems to be continuing on in this race. The Alex Smith is now putting the pressure on. All of these kind of incidents have allowed the top three to really kind of rest and relax a little bit more into this race. Barry Clayton now 3.5 seconds clear of Paul Millman. Paul Millman about 2 seconds, or make that 2.5 seconds clear of Guy Swarbrick, and Guy Swarbrick now about 2 seconds clear of Will Inglis. Will Inglis probably also a little bit apprehensive of trying to find his way past Guy Swarbrick now. Guy Swarbrick, of course, very much entitled to defend that corner in the way that he did. In fact, I don't even think he was defending at that point in time. I think Will Inglis was trying to set himself up for the overtake under braking heading into the Nouvelle chicane, and just kind of judged it wrong. There was an open door heading up on the inside there, and he opted to try and find a way around the outside. It's very difficult to kind of predict or to kind of weigh up here at Monaco, with it being so tight and kind of so compact as well. The corners come up on you so quickly, even though it's not a high-speed circuit in the world. It's such a kind of closed-in and compact circuit. It certainly feels that way. One momentary lapse in concentration, one slight misjudgment can completely undo your race, as we've potentially seen for Will Inglis. Although he's going to try it again, heading down that start-finish straight. It's going to be a little bit easier this time round. Or will it be? They're side by side. Will Inglis just about gets a node ahead, and before we head into this Sandoval right-hander, it's going to be Will Inglis now in P3. So he can certainly crack on with trying to challenge for P2, maybe P1 as well in this race. He's already got a spot on the podium. Meanwhile, further down the running, it is relatively close quarters to the drive. Still, we have a bit of a train forming up behind Will Inglis here. We have Guy Swarbrick just a second behind, just 7 tenths behind that is Andrew Brammer, and then a second behind is Alex Smith, and then about a second behind, make that 7 tenths, is Paul Brady. And then we have Jack Holton also involved in this one as well. So a fairly close battle is threatening to happen here. About 7 minutes into this race so far, and still all to play for here on the streets of Monaco. Again, add that one to your bingo card, add that to your kind of tally. So what, drinking game. Do a shot every time I say on the streets of Monaco, and see how much of this race room you can remember by the end of it. I can tell you, with only about 20 minutes to go, it's still going to be a very difficult task indeed. As we have Guy Swarbrick and Andrew Brammer now battling it out as we head through the swimming pool complex. It is going to be 7 tenths per second separating these two as we head through the final corner, and that all-important start-finish straight. In terms of their straight line speeds, 250 kilometres an hour through the speed traps for Guy Swarbrick, and it's going to be 262 kilometres an hour for Andrew Brammer. So if anyone is going to be benefiting from the start-finish rate, it's going to be the likes of Andrew Brammer or Will Inglis. They're the fastest cars on track at this point in time. Alex Smith, Guy Swarbrick, Paul Millman and Barry Clayton involved. You can also include Steve Knight in this one as well, and Jack Hodson in fact. Also, they are very much on the higher downforce side of things in this race weekend so far, and it's worked out relatively well for them so far. Good to see a mix of setups proving to be competitive with each other, even at a circuit that's traditionally been all about the downforce. Now, in terms of the championship, let's see how things are looking after race 1. It is, of course, Will Inglis, 357 points for him, extends his lead rather. Paul Brady closing in on Alex Smith, although as things stand, it's going to be Alex Smith who builds that lead once again. So it's a very important battle after this battle for P6, because it's also a battle for P2 in the championship. As we have Jack Hodson closing up as well, 175 points to his name. Paul Millman, 167 points to his name. So as things stand, it's going to be Paul Millman who actually overtakes Jack Hodson in the championship standings at this point in time. So the battle for P4 also very important here, race 2 in Monaco. Then we have Barry Clayton. He'll be overtaking all of them. In fact, so again, very important battle for P4 going on here in race 2 at Monaco, as Barry Clayton currently P6, 163 points to his name. Then we have Alan Matthews, P7, 154 points. Andrew Brammer, P8, 139 points. Then we have the likes of Guy Swarbrick, Steve Knight and Rob Whitty very close in the championship. Guy Swarbrick could be making a good innings on the likes of Steve Knight here in race 2 at Monaco. So actually, as it turns out, this reverse good race at Monaco is going to be very important for the championship standings at this point in the championship. Of course, as we progress later and later on in the season, as those battles continue on, each race becomes more and more important. We're now in our final 5 races of the season, of course. What a shame that is, of course. But each race gets more and more exciting as it becomes more and more important for the championship. I should mention actually that, of course, we do have some exciting things coming for the endurance racing this summer. So hopefully we can see a few of you getting involved for that, because it should be a very exciting season indeed with that Julia short wheelbase Zagato. A fantastic looking car and an exciting mix of track as well, so I'll be sure to make sure we've got a good couple of streams going on for that one, of course, as well, and then go to try my best to host a bit of a season highlight for this year, because I think in particular this season's running has been exciting. 2023 so far has delivered some fantastic racing, so I want to make sure we congratulate you guys on taking part, and for you viewers at home as well can have a bit of a recap as to what has been an exciting season's worth of racing. So we'll be, or at least I'll be trying to put on a bit of a show for that one and produce a good highlights reel for you guys. As we now have a battle going on between Paul Millman and Willingliss, although it was a bit of a short battle in the end. Willingliss having a very strong start to this lap, and then heading down in to Mirabeau, was able to get ahead. Is now running in P2, so a good recovery in this race for Willingliss. He's certainly shown he's got the pace. Barry Clayton now, well, this is the battle that we were hoping to see in race 1. We're not quite at half race distance just yet, and it was rather taken away from us at the start of race 1. These two were competitive in terms of lap time, with Barry Clayton actually coming out on top, but Willingliss we know had a compromised qualifying. So, after a good few laps here at Monaco so far this weekend, we are finally going to get the battle that we've been looking forward to. Barry Clayton versus Willingliss. We've seen that they enjoy a battle in the past, and we're almost, I'd argue, one of the best kind of battling duos, up there with the likes of Barry Clayton and Alan Matthews. They also know how to have a battle. But we should see some fantastic battling now going on between these two. They're about a 10-second delta at this point in time, so let's see, as I believe everyone has just had a major impact. That is Guy Swarbrick, in fact, pointing the wrong direction. Paul Brady involved in that one as well. Jack Hodson involved in a bit of contact with the wall. Is that Alex Smith as well? Yes. The midfield to lower midfield has had an absolute disaster on this previous lap, and will be slowing down as a result, as everyone is now carrying a bit of front wing damage. And as we jump back on board with Barry Clayton, he's 10 seconds ahead. We haven't seen too much from him in this race, actually. He's just been doing a very fine job of leading this race in a very unchaotic manner, which is exactly what you need when you're in Barry Clayton's position in the championship, trying to take as many points as possible to boost your standings. Andrew Brammer then, currently running in P4, is our pretty much joint quickest car on track. He's currently setting personal best. Maybe he's one of those drivers we were talking about just a few minutes ago that you might be opting for an interesting strategy in terms of he's going to wait until he's going to wait until he can push later on in the race when he's saved a bit of his tyres. I've just noticed actually, and I might be completely alone in this one. You can call me out for it in the comments or after the racing if you want. Am I the only one who's just noticed that that Barry Clayton's car looks as if it's running Flovis, as if it's in testing? If you look at the suspension and the back of the diffuser, I'm not sure if it's a reflections thing in the game or if it was intentional, and do tell me if it is. And I'm just not the brightest, but that looks brilliant in just how kind of the suspension is also neon yellow. The back end of that car as most of this car is in its entirety neon yellow or green. The suspension is as well. That is a fantastic little touch, as is the bottom of the floor there. So I'm not quite sure if that's just me only just noticing this for the first time around, or if it is an intentional thing, or if it's just reflections from the bodywork there. But that is a neat little touch if that is Flovis, because it's not something you quite expect. We fell into livery talk, which it's been a good season, I think, since we last fell into livery talk. But we've fallen back into it once again, because that is a nice little touch on Barry Clayton, which is arguably the most, I say arguably, it clearly is the most distinctive livery. I mean, look at it, it is the safest car on track. It can never have any incidents, it can never have any injuries, it can never ever potentially fall into any type of danger, because he's wearing the biggest high visibility jacket known to man. He is... He's very well protected on track there, as is being demonstrated by the fact he's 11 seconds clear of the rest of the field. Oh yeah, that's neat little stuff. This reminds me actually of mine, not to make it a bit uncouth, to talk about your other kind of commentary gigs as well. When I was commentating in Wales on a British University's karting race, someone turned up in a neon green rain suit. It was raining. It was Wales, of course. Raining, as Barry Clayton sets a personal best sector 1. And is looking for a predicted 1 minute 18.5. You look at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen there. A fantastic effort from him if he has been able to preserve his tyres. I think a few drivers potentially preserving their tyres later into the race in comparison to race 1. But it does remind me a little bit of a commentary gig I had in Wales, where it was starting to rain, it being Wales of course, and someone from, I believe it was was University of Cardiff or University of Leicester or something like that, came out in such a bright neon green rain suit, and you might have caught this if you were watching. That was so like kind of luminescent. We had to go back and adjust the cameras as he sets another personal best after. In fact, this is going to rival his qualifying session here as we head through Rascas for one final time on the lap 10 minutes ago in this race. Of course, 1 minute 17.7 predicted for Barry Clayton as he heads onto that start finish straight. 1 minute 18 make that, losing a little bit of time through sector 3, but still by far and away the quickest lap of the race so far. That is a fantastic effort from Barry Clayton. He takes, of course, the fastest lap of the race so far and is running very nicely indeed. But Barry Clayton is, yes, rather extending his race lead at this point in time. Let's have a look at how Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer are faring now as we head onto the start finish straight. Paul Millman using that push-to-pass system to defend. Paul Millman has been very eager on that push-to-pass system. It's worked well for him so far this evening. As we also have a close battle going on between Jack Houghton and Andrew Brammer. Apologies, no, Jack Houghton and Paul Brady. Yes, this race suit, rather like Barry Clayton's delivery, so bright that we had to go back and readjust the cameras midway through the stream because it was genuinely so distracting, as Barry Clayton's delivery often is to me, that we were struggling to commentate. We had two commentators in the commentary box and we were struggling to talk about anything else for a good 20 minutes other than just every now and again we'd see a car come around the corner and all we could say is, wow, look at that. So I'm glad to see that Barry Clayton also deploying the same tactic here at Monaco. Very long session of livery talk, I do apologise for that, but it's a talking point. That neon green livery is a talking point. As we go back and forth with Jack Hodgson now, about half a second separating him and Paul Brady. He's done a very good job actually to keep Paul Brady there. We know Paul Brady has race-leading pace, one of the quicker drivers on track, and an error at the exit of the Nouvelle chicane sees Paul Brady swooping past, absolutely capitalising on that very small error in judgment there. We know Jack Hodgson struggled with the Nouvelle chicane so far this weekend. And there we have, but oh dear, he's struggling with the swimming pool chicane as well as he rides over the curbs and finds himself implanted in the barrier. What a disaster for his race. Alex Smith will be coming up on him very shortly. He needs to either reverse or dive into the pits, and unfortunately for him, he's going to have to dive into the pits. What a shame to see his race come undone in such a fashion after a good few laps running here. 8 minutes to go in this session now, and it is Alex Smith promoted up into P6. We saw an impressive start to the race for him, but unfortunately not the charge that that perhaps we expected from him after what has been some impressive pace at the start, but maybe he's playing his cards safely and would rather at least take away some points from this race than nothing. As unfortunately that is a retirement for Jack Houghton and late stage in the race. What a shame to see Barry Clayton meanwhile. Now very apprehensive to join Barry Clayton. He's going to dive back into livery talk. But he's now 16 seconds clear of the rest of the pack. Paul Newman has been doing his best to keep up with winning this, rather maybe not keep up with winning this, but think about trying to keep Andrew Brammer at bay. Once again, Andrew Brammer finds himself in the midst of battle. One of the few drivers who has been battling, I'd say, throughout the weekend's running here, as Guy Trumwick has just had a catastrophic incident. 102 kilometres an hour into the wall, and clearly that Tech Pro barrier, or Guy Trumwick's bravery, is certainly proving very strong here. So to be able to jump back onto the racetrack after 100 kilometres an hour into all I'm going to say is, it's a good thing that we don't have direct drive. Do you have direct drive? Well, I hope you don't for the sake of your risk, Guy, because 102 kilometres an hour is certainly nothing to sniff at in terms of impact speed. And I think we're seeing a lack of downforce on that front end heading through the Nouvelle chicane there as a result of that one. So, props to you if you're able to bring that home. After such an impact, there is no front wing left on that car at all. No, it looks like there is, but I can trust me, there isn't any front wing left on that car. As we dive back in with Andrew Brammer now, kissing the wall absolutely perfectly there as we run through turn 7 and back through the tunnel once again. Andrew Brammer looking very comfortable here at Monaco. Certainly not the quickest driver out on track, but is looking very comfortable indeed. And that is the commentator's curse, very much in full effect as soon as I say that. Small error in braking and has to run straight through the Nouvelle chicane there. So luckily no major ill effects of that, but apologies there for the commentator's curse. Back in full effect here at Monaco. Good to see. It's been a couple of races now. I don't think it's been too many races since we've seen the commentator's curse. I think what happened is we had such a bad streak of the commentator's curse earlier on, is that it was just ill-advised me to say anything about, make any comments about anyone's racing, which is very difficult, of course, when you're commentating on racing, to not make any comments about racing. But the commentator's curse was just so strong, it was not worth it at all. But good to see that this is the first time I'd say in a little while that we've had any kind of major effect. I'm sure actually that the drivers are very pleased when unfortunately they have to miss a race or two, because it means that they can just quietly get on and and choose their own destiny in the racing, instead of let me kind of influence things. As Paul Brady, I believe, has had an incident, his car not looking healthy at all. So very strong showing from him, given he has no front or rear wing in this race. Two closest cars on track are Andrew Rama and Paul Milman at this point in time. It's a battle for the podium as well. Andrew Rama involved in a battle for the podium? Well, I never. It's not as if we've seen that before. That is, of course, sarcasm. Andrew Rama always able to have a nice, strong race. That's why he does well in the points in the championship standings. Maybe not always poised for taking pole positions in qualifying or battling for P1. But certainly is always there to pick up the pieces and always at the upper end of the midfield, fighting for podiums on quite a frequent basis now. So good to see his development as a driver, good to see how strong he is in race conditions in particular, and we're seeing another example of that as he is hunting down Paul Milman. And let's see how his predicted lap time is faring by the end of this one. Has pushed a pass, is going to in fact run near enough side by side with Paul Milman. Paul Milman able to defend well, using those encroaching barriers to his advantage here at Monaco, which is of course an interesting trait of the circuit that not too many others demonstrate. As we run now down towards the hairpin in just a moment's time, Andrew Rama going to have to pick his moment and pick it well, because in terms of pace at the moment, current pace does go to Andrew Rama. He was a little bit slower on that last lap, but that was just because he's absolutely attached to the rear wing. In terms of outright pace, Andrew Rama is the quicker of the two. So it all comes down to being able to pick that overtaking opportunity and pick it well. Although it seems to be on the exit of turns 8 there, on the exit of Portier, Paul Milman was able to break away just that little bit, and potentially we're starting to see the tyres drop off now on Andrew Rama's car. He's been pushing them a little bit hard, keeping up with Paul Milman, and we see a four-wheel lock-up there. That's going to compound issues. Of course, you lose grip, you lock up more, you heat up the tyres, and you lose grip, you start to screw off the tyres, and it just becomes a recurring cycle when you get lock-ups. It is one of the most difficult things to manage in a race car over a race distance. So potentially we're starting to see in the final 3 minutes now the tyres dropping off once again. So let's see if Andrew Rama is able to get past Paul Milman at this late stage in the race for P3. The battle for P3, all important here at Monaco, especially when the points are so close in the midfield battle in this championship with a few races to go. 16 laps under our belt at Monaco, one of the shorter laps that we visit, of course, on the calendar. That last lap, a 1 minute 20.9, so we are certainly seeing, in fact, across the board really, we're starting to see the drivers lose a little bit of pace in this race. Barry Clayton, I should mention, has been in complete control of this race since we last visited him. We're wondering whether, now that Woodless has worked his way through the field, will he close up on Barry Clayton? Now, I can tell you what happened. Barry Clayton realised that his nearest rival was behind, and that 10-second gap quite quickly became a 16-second gap, and has remained such for the past 10 minutes now. A fantastic effort from Barry Clayton, and I think rather makes amends for what we saw in race 1. Lock up for both Andrew Rama and Paul Milman, in fact, heading through the Nouveau chicane there. So the tyres now, I believe, 3 starting to struggle. 2 minutes to go on the timer, as we have more contact, more issues, more collisions for the likes of Andrew Rama, Alex Smith as well. Alex Smith in P6 in this race, the last driver on the lead lap of this race. Not quite the charge I think we were expecting to see from him, given how well the race started. But I think, of course, Monaco is one of those circuits that you just gain confidence. Oh dear! Commentator's curse in full effect once again. I do apologise, Alex Smith. My fault for going on board with you there, really. As we go back on board with Paul Milman. This is brave of me to do so once again. But Monaco is one of those circuits where pace only comes with confidence. You spend the first few laps kind of being very wary of the wall, but by the end of it, in order to get most out of the track and most out of yourself, you need to completely forget that the walls are there. And that only comes with getting laps on your belt and getting time on your belt and becoming more comfortable and more familiar with the circuit. And Alex Smith is at a disadvantage in that respect because he just simply hasn't had another 25 minutes, another practice session, another qualifying today. that these drivers have had. So it's his first session of the day so far. So I think he's doing a very commendable job given given those circumstances. As we head into the Nouvelle Chicane once again, it's still Paul Millman in the lead of this battle. Are we potentially now seeing Andrew Rama dropping off ever so slightly? Still been an interesting battle nonetheless. We're going to have a look at, going to potentially try not to bring in the commentator's curse once again, and we have. I joined for one brief moment, and the back end on Barry Clayton's car stepped out. I do apologise, Barry, but there we see him having some slight issues there. Nothing too major. Oh dear, what is happening there? The back end seems to be locking up on his car. Is that a mechanical issue? Is that an issue with his setup? We're not quite sure. He needs to get underway relatively quickly, otherwise he's going to lose this race lead to Will Inglis. There is, of course, Guy Swarbrick mixed in this as well. He is able to get underway, but there is Will Inglis, his nearest rival, and when all looked to be over, when it looked to be so comfortable for Barry Clayton, we're now seeing Barry Clayton's got this mysterious rear axle issue, and there is Will Inglis now only half a second behind, as close as he's ever been in this race, the closest battle we've had to the lead for the entire race weekend, in effect. As we now head down towards the Nouvelle Chicane, Will Inglis finds himself poised to get the overtake done. Is he going to be brave? I think he has to be. He has to capitalise any potential opportunity he can get to get that overtake done now, with so little time left in this race. Will Inglis's car clearly not happy, but Barry Clayton's even less happy. I'm sure the back end of that car is not going to be the most confidence-inspiring thing as we head towards the end of this lap now. The gap expanding ever so slightly. Will it still be safe for Barry Clayton? We'll find out in just a moment's time now. The gap does still build. It's Barry Clayton heading onto that start-finish straight in the lead of this race still. When it looks so comfortable for him, it hasn't been on this lap. It's very much under pressure now for Barry Clayton as we start the final lap of this race. 1 second now separating Barry Clayton and Will Inglis. Will Inglis has just been gifted not quite the perfect opportunity rather, but still a very good one indeed. 0.8 of a second separating these two drivers now. It's now or never. I think Will Inglis won't even care about trying to keep a podium, trying to keep P2, P3, trying to even score points in this race. He's just going to want to try and get that race victory at this point in time, because this opportunity has just been presented to him on a silver platter. When it all looked to be over, it's now very close indeed. While this is going on, the battle between Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer is still raging on, of course. As we head into the Nouvelle Chicane, one of the prime overtaking opportunities, it's still Barry Clayton in the lead of this race. 0.6 of a second separating these two drivers now as we head through to back once again. The issues that seem to, for one moment at least, put a complete stop to Barry Clayton's race seems to have disappeared. Luckily for him, he can now rest a little bit easier as that race victory becomes ever so slightly closer. What's it they say? You never feel so alive as when you're moments away from death. Well, that certainly must have felt the case for Barry Clayton as he comes across the line in a moment's time to take the race run victory. You never feel like you're going to lose so much as when you're moments away from losing the race lead here, and that nearly was the case for Barry Clayton as he comes across the line to eventually take the race 2 victory. Well done, Barry. That was very close indeed. Commiserations, Will Inglis. That was a close one in the end. After what looked to be all said and done, Will Inglis was just 10th away from winning the second race here, and it being 2 race victories in Monaco for Will Inglis. It is not the case, unfortunately, for him. He comes home to take P2. Paul Millman in the end does round out the podium. So another podium under Paul Millman's belt. Great to see his progression throughout the past few seasons. Then we have Andrew Brammer coming home P4. Paul Millman in the end P5. Alex Smith will be coming home P6 as Steve Knight classified P7, Guy Swarbrick classified P8. So that was a very action-packed end to the racing action here at Monaco in the end. It looked to be a very simple run to the finish, but that wasn't to be the case in the end. The commentator's curse very much in full effect as it turns out in race 2, but it is Barry Clayton who eventually takes the race 2 victory. Well done, Barry, and I'm sure the celebrations will be enjoyed to their maximum after that race. Certainly didn't look to be comfortable towards the end there. I don't think we're going to get much in the terms of race victory donuts, of course, because there's just no real opportunity to do so. Maybe heading through Saint-Devote here. We'll find out in just a moment's time to see if that is still possible. No, everyone is just going to have to dive back into the pits because there simply isn't room. So, we hope you've enjoyed watching as much as I've enjoyed commentating this evening. Monaco, as it turns out, very action-packed. Might not be the prime overtaking circuit, but still plenty of racing action to enjoy. Hope you've enjoyed watching as much as I've enjoyed commentating, and we'll catch you in a fortnight's time for the next single-seater round, and in a week's time for the next touring car action. So thank you very much for watching, and good night.